Good day, and welcome to our Black History Show for 2013. I'm Michael Sabatino, Councilman in the 3rd District for the City of Yonkers.
And I'm Ivy Reeves, and welcome to Fade to Black, a weekly series for real people, real experiences, and real talk. Today our topic is Black, Educated, and Unemployed. And our first guest with us today is Mr. Winston COLLYMORE. Winston has been a New York City school teacher for, 37 years?
Yes.
And he's going to tell us some of the changes he's seen and many other issues that we'll probably talk about today. So, Mr. COLLYMORE.
Well, good morning and good afternoon to all of you. One of the experiences that I have observed over the period of years is the loss of the arts in the school system. I've also noticed that there has been a change and a lowering of the amount of classes in which there were physical education. There was a tendency to teach to the tests, and apparently there was a tendency to lose funding for things such as library books and library activities. These are just a few of the changes that took place over the period of time that I was in the system.
Now, you worked in a school district in the Bronx, if I'm correct?
Yes, School District 9.
And what was the general population of the students there? The general population tended to be around Latino and African Americans. I say Latino because there were many cultural groups within the Latino community, so I can't just say one particular group because I really don't feel qualified to say that. But I remember over the years I had children that were from, of course, Puerto Rican, from Puerto Rico, and children who were from Mexico, children who were from Guatemala, just a number of places, in addition to people who were from the Caribbean, Jamaica, Barbados, you name it. So it was a broad section, and there were students who were from Africa. So District 9 had a healthy variety of cultural groups within it. Yeah. So
now getting back to college educated, and that's one of the main topics today. We're speaking on Black Americans who have gone to college and have lived that American dream. For example, all Americans have been told that the best way to protect yourself against unemployment is to get a college degree. And in many instances, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics report that unemployment rate for Black Americans have, as of January, last January, was 15.7% compared to 8% to whites. And Black Americans with college degrees had even the higher rate of unemployment of all ethnic groups. And the level, that level was high even when the market was stable. So I know that you went to college. You went to, I think you're a graduate of Howard University?
Yes.
Okay.
The Centennial class,
okay.
1967. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And you also have a master's degree from NYC.
City College, CCNY,
yes.
and also New York University.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Okay. So, and you became a school teacher, which back then you just told us some of the things that you see that are different, but you probably did not have a very difficult time finding a job when you got out of college, unlike many college students are experiencing today.
Well, that was a different era. That was the era of the 60s, and it was a golden era as far as finding jobs. However, unfortunately, what has happened is that through technology, machines have supplanted people. And unfortunately, they're not necessarily the numbers of employees needed for a job that existed years ago. Even the skilled jobs. As a matter of fact, just the other day, I was driving along one of the highways, the Bruckner Expressway, and I noticed that the big poster signs that you see on the highway had changed.
Years ago, you'd see the people pasting up the new advertisement. Not now. It's now LED lighted. So now all that is necessary is for a technician to redesign through the computer what the new ad will be. And those people who came up in trucks and put up those signs are no longer necessary. So just as an example of some of the one of the changes that has taken place. And so one has to be aware today that if one is going to be college educated, that one better keep his or her eye on where the jobs are. For instance, the health field. Jobs are in the health field. That's one of the areas that one should look at. The law field, well, it's pretty crowded there.
So let's before we go there, because in the end, I'd like to look at some of the things that will help to overcome some of the issues that many people are experiencing now when they do have college degrees. And let's just also be honest about it. Whether you can have a college degree, but also many things play a factor in whether or not, and some college students, Black Americans, African American college students, are concerned about certain things like their appearance. You know, if they want to wear their hair natural, you know, that is something that they have to always think twice about, because it may not be acceptable in the corporate world. Now, I know you worked in public schools, so that wasn't a factor, but when you're working in corporate, they expect you to look a certain way. You want to make a comment?
Well, as a matter of fact, I remember going into one of the major banks, and there was a young lady there who had dreads, and who was an employee. And as a matter of fact, I think she was management level. And I casually said to her, I'm sure you've had some experience with your hair. And she casually turned around to me and said, yes, I have. And it wasn't easy for her. She had to stand up for her rights. That's what she had to do in order to keep her job.
Yes, because when I worked at Marist, and a lot of times, a lot of the senior African American students who are graduating would say, your hair is also always so wonderful, it looks so nice, natural, but we're afraid that we won't get hired if our hair looks a certain way. And so that has been one of the, because no other race of people really would have to, you know, be concerned about what their hair looked like, because most people aren't thinking about your hair, it's usually your qualifications. So that has been one of the things, and just being oneself. And one young woman in an article that I read just wanted to be herself. She didn't want to be, you know, any other way, just being herself. And I'm not exactly sure what oneself would actually mean, but I think that maybe she just wanted to be natural and didn't have to put on any kind of airs to pretend like she was something else. I'm just not really sure, but those were some of the things that came up. Other things were, of course, we have our regular discrimination. So, you know, and there's something called racial politics, where, you know, I guess once you get into a corporation, when they hire a certain quota, because, you know, affirmative action is no longer an issue, once certain corporations, institutions have hired a so-called, they say, quota of blacks, then they no longer, you know, feel the need, so to speak, to hire others. And so these are some of the other things that have been going on as far as, you know, but what you brought out, technology was one thing, because we don't have people, and we really do, honestly, as a sidebar, need a lot of customer service jobs. Customer service is not what it used to be, and we barely even get it, because, you know, when we pick up the phone, we're getting, you know, a recording that says press 1 for this, press 2 for that, and then if it's nothing.
Or someone from another country.
Or someone from another country. The jobs have been going to, you know, other countries, and you barely understand, you know, what's being said. And in America, the main thing that's held us together has been our language. So, so do you have any other things that you've experienced in working with students who may have come back to you from college to say, you know, maybe they're having problems, maybe someone in your family that have had problems getting jobs?
And actually, just to add on to that, I mean, given when you started your teaching career, you know, I think it was pretty unusual to have an African American elementary school teacher.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And a male.
And a male.
Yes. As a matter of fact, for many years, and at the school that I stayed for over 20 years, I was just one of two, if not three, in a staff of over 60. So it was, I had to be an ambassador, standing up just representing African American males, not only to my staff members or fellow staff members, but I also had to be an ambassador for students, because many of our students did not have males in the household. So who were they going to, what guidelines were they using as to how to react to someone who was setting an example for them? And in some cases, these students, if they did have a parent, the parent was incarcerated. And so there were particular difficulties that existed in the communication process between myself and many students throughout my years. I had to convince them that I was in a leadership position.
Okay.
And it took a while for them to, oh, well, you know, he is my teacher.
So now, getting out of school and becoming a school teacher, salaries. We're going to talk about salaries, black salaries versus white salaries, and there have been studies that show that black Americans make roughly 25% less than whites at the same educational level. And why do you think this happens? And anyone can comment on that. You know, you can comment on it, tell us, and I'll tell you what I think and some research that I've done, and you know, we can go from there.
Well, if one is newly arrived in the corporate scene, of course, one is going to begin at a lower salary. And certainly if the number of people above one have been there for a while, it's going to take a while to climb up the salary scale if one performs at the level that the particular agency expects one to perform. So that's always a mitigating factor, because nowadays, well, especially in the school system, it's almost as if there are no guarantees, no tenure, so we can release you maybe without cause, or fire you for whatever reason, whereas there used to be unions, et cetera. So people who have been in the system for a while, they have gained a certain amount of salary, and those who are coming aboard, they're going to have to be there a while, as not to be repetitive of what I'm saying, but in being there, if they can stay there, and if they can perform as the agency and the officials want them to, they'll eventually rise above whatever the statistical cutoff level is.
Yeah, so because you're in the educational field, it's a little different because you also have teachers unions and things like that. But when you're in a corporate, which you may or may not be able to respond to, but I know you have a daughter who also graduated from Hampton University, where I also worked there too. And you know, the thing is that there, I think they're saying there's certain aspects that take place which makes them not able to get jobs, whether it's the educational level, because a lot of African American students do not go to the best schools. And so when I was at Marist, for example, Syracuse, I'm sorry, when I was at Syracuse, we had to put any freshmen coming in from urban areas would have to go to a summer program to get them up to par with other students that would be coming in for the semester. And they would have to take like they would do in any college, take English, proficiency exams and things like that. But the problem is that they don't get the education, they don't have the skill level, and that's what they're saying some of the problems are for the people not getting the jobs is because of the skill level, not getting the pay rather, because the skill level isn't up to par with others. Do you have any comment about that or experience anything?
Well, I think my experience, I could speak to the experience of the needs for improving the educational quality of the student that enters the college level, and I'm going to admit that I was one of those students. I was a reading dyslexic when I was in elementary school. I went to a private school after leaving elementary school. I was left back in the 7th grade. My parents took me, and fortunately I had parents who were working in an environment where they could afford. They sent me to the New York University Reading Institute. And at that institute, I went from the bottom class to the top class. From there, I went to Rhodes High School, which I'm not particularly proud of because it's named after Cecil Rhodes. And from there, I went to Music and Art High School. But my point is, when I went to Howard University, they accepted me only if I took certain courses. And I had to take 5 remedial courses in order to, for them to feel that I could function on their level. Entering the workforce, I could function on that level. I became a teacher. I passed the exam for being an assistant principal. But I owe that to the remedial courses that the college offered. I say that to say that there's something's missing here in what you're saying. Because if the workforce is finding college graduates who are not performing on the level that those in the workforce demand, there seems to be a disconnect between those college graduates and what their training has been and being prepared for the workforce.
I want to go back to what you said about you being fortunate enough that your parents took you to, you were able to go someplace to help you get that help. Unfortunately, there are many African Americans, and you can attest to this or whatever, that don't have the opportunities, and that sometimes is a barrier as far as trying to move forward because they don't have the same opportunities. And I think, in my own personal opinion, that it is about opportunity and the fact that you need money. And if you don't come from a family that already has a certain amount of money where they can afford you those types of opportunities, then you are somewhat, you know, it's a setback, you know,
Yes.
and you really have to work very hard to get caught up with the others who haven't. You may not ever get caught up. The other thing is with salaries, certain families that have money already, they're set in a sense than first generation African Americans who may be just, you know, graduate, the first college graduate in their family. And so they don't have the type of money that's already been set in place because the families have not been able to build like that. You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
You know, so I think that is also a hindrance, so to speak, or a setback for those students who just have not had the opportunity or the monies to do. And a lot of us have talent, but we just don't have the opportunity. And if we had the opportunity, do you think that living in America